The first thing I want to do is I heard we have folks from Canada, we have folks from here, and here's actually ginormous. I'm just learning how ginormous here is. And then, of course, you've got the West Coast people like myself that came from Los Angeles, California. Any other places that we didn't cover to talk about where you're from? Anybody else? Okay, I just want to know where these messages that you're getting are going to end up through you. So I know that all of this wisdom that's coming out of all of these different people and sharing information is going to end up going all across the world because it is about across the nations. So some time ago, I started getting an unctioning about the issue of aging. And then someone came to me and said, have you heard of Jurassicophobia? Well, my thought was, hopefully I get some action here. All right, I'll just click it. That. Jurassicophobia? Yeah, I've got Jurassicophobia. Well, it turns out that Jurassicophobia is actually the fear of aging. Think about it, gerontology and all of that stuff, right? All comes from the same space. Well, the fear of aging, Jurassicophobia, was a bit too much of a mouthful for me. So I discovered the term FOGO. Way easier. The fear of getting old. FOGO actually starts at a really young age. It starts when you're a child, when you're seeing your neighbors, your parents, your grandparents start to lose a little hair, maybe their vision, their balance, their hearing. And that's when we start to engage in that fear about getting old. And unfortunately, that fear tends to follow us all through adulthood because none of us really want to have to deal with that. But God already tells us that we shouldn't have a spirit of fear. We've all heard the scripture. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of power and of love and sound judgment. Now, what type of things are we thinking about? What type of issues are we concerned about when we think about aging? And the reaction of aging, based on the studies that we've done so far, are usually three things. And you'll find yourself in one of them. So we're thinking about it. And one of the first things we want to do is we want to run. We want to run as far away from looking old as we possibly can. We don't want to deal with the issues of aging, and so we run from it because we can't deal with the idea of getting older. We do everything we can not to look older, feel older, except that it is happening. Sidebar. Probably didn't know this. 87 billion equivalent US dollars is spent on anti-aging products and services. The United States is guilty of nearly half of that, so call us what you will. The next one, when it comes to aging, is we want to deny that it's happening, right? We just don't want to believe that it's happening. So denial looks like your 50-year-old self trying to tell it to do a 20-year-old thing. Don't do that. You're going to be sorry. We all, for those of us that have, reached this level, we know when we start asking our bodies to do something it shouldn't, we're just in denial about what it can do. At about 30 years old, I discovered my first gray hair. I was certain it had everything to do with a series of arguments that I had had with a close friend over the last few months. That gray hair is because of them. That is what I thought. Yes, I was in complete denial about the fact that the flagscape of aging had just risen its ugly head. The other thing is fighting back, which is what I'm hoping as you leave here after this conference, that's what you're going to do. Fighting back isn't so much being able to fight the issue of time, because time is going to go past and it goes past quickly. But fighting is taking out the time, utilizing the time as you can, while you can, to live the way you can, so that your aging process is something that will service you as you get older. Really wishing this clicker was working, but you know it is what it is. Let's try one more time. No. Okay. Hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. When it comes to aging, again, we don't want to see it. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want to talk about it. Let me help you though. And before I do, for the advisors, no disclosure or disclaimer is required for what I'm about to say. I guarantee you that if you talk about it, you're not going to get older any faster. But if you talk about it, you might get a little smarter. If you talk about it, you might find out that you're not alone in the process. We actually did a study just a few weeks ago with a focus group and brought some gentlemen together. And one of the amazing things came out of that event. The prayer was that when they came out of the event, they would come out with a tool that would be helpful for them, that they would come out feeling stronger, feeling filled once they left the building. To our surprise, after surveying them, and we surveyed everyone, what they discovered was that most of them had issues sleeping. And they were all shocked to find out they weren't the only one. And we'll talk a little bit more about community in a minute. Now, what I'd like to do is, having said what I said, talk to me about, at the end of the day, the conversations are going to always be about bringing together the information, being able to build the kingdom around that information, creating insight for people that are dealing with it, and walking away with the various wisdom, and then taking that information like these gentlemen were able to do. Because what they did was, one, they found out they weren't alone. Two, they started to network on solving the problem of sleeplessness, which was amazing because they had no idea that they had a network. So let me ask you a question. Of those that are sitting right here, let's be honest, who has at least one concern about the aging process? Show of hands. We're going to be very, very transparent here, okay? Don't put those hands down that fast. Oh no. Oh no, this is very interactive. We're going to be doing this a lot. Okay, I saw you in the back. Share what one of those things is. Fear of dementia. Okay, 100%. And I don't think there's anybody in this room that would argue with that. Let me give you this fun fact. Did you know that you can help to avoid dementia by learning new things? Learn how to play an instrument, learn a new language. Continuing to keep your mind active actually helps stave off dementia. What other concerns do we have? I'll go to the other side of the room. I'll bother you later. Okay, who had their hand up? Don't play. Don't play with me. I'll stand here and hold my fingers straight up. There you go. Not able to look after yourself, 100%. You look happy. What do you got?
Yeah, I think the same thing. There's not really any to be active for me. To be active. Yeah, it's experience, right?
Exactly. Okay, we're going to talk more about that too. Now, the Bible talks a lot about the aging process. We don't think about it much because when we're reading it, it's like, oh, he's talking about those people, right? But he talks about everything from training the child up through the young are supposed to be mentored, if you will, by the older people. The women are supposed to teach the younger women, right? So we're going to talk about all of those things. And one of the things that as we're getting older, we're going through this process, we can not only expect to be honored, right? But we're expected to give honor as we get older. And the Bible is very clear on that. And there's multiple scriptures as it relates to that. One of them being in First Timothy, correct an older man in a way that shows respect. Make an appeal to him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as if they were your brother. Treat older women as if they were your mother. Treat younger women as if they were your sisters. Be completely pure in the way you treat them. So we've taken a look at the young adult process and on through to being elderly, what the expectation should be, how we should be honoring, and how we should expect to be honored. In Leviticus, it has, you shall rise before gray-headed. Anybody want to stand up for me? Okay. And honor the aged, and you shall fear the Lord. I am the Lord. The Bible also talks about wisdom. Well, let's face it, as you're getting older, let's hope you're getting smarter. Am I right about it? Am I the only one? Yes, especially those in this room who have spent a lifetime learning. So the expectation is as you're getting older, everyone else expects you to have a certain level of wisdom as well. In Job, I said, age should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. In Timothy, let the older men be sober, reverent, temperate, sound in faith, in love, and patience. The older women, likewise, that they be reverent in behavior, not slanderers, not given to much wine. The Bible also talks about finishing well. And it's one of those scriptures that we all hear, and that because of God, being confident of this, that he who began a good work will carry it through to completion until the day of Christ. So I want to ask you a question, because I told you I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. So how many of you right now, just based on the scriptures that we just talked about, are kind of thinking to yourself, how do I move and align myself accordingly with those scriptures? Some people have said to me when I bring those scriptures up, well, you have to earn honor and respect. Tell God that he said this is the way it's supposed to be. But as human beings, our tendency is to think, yes, we should earn it. So what I'd like you to do is anybody, even with those scriptures that have been read, wondering, how do I align myself? Whether you're younger and you need to maybe refresh how you treat older people, or maybe you're seasoned and you want to feel like you're actually a recipient of that honor. Any thoughts at all in the room? Don't be shy, because I will actually step down here and come to the table where you are with the microphone. It's what I do. Anyone? Well, I will tell you this. I met with what's called a mother's board. I don't know if you have that here, but I'm very transparent, so I'm just going to tell you exactly like it is. In the Black church, and I don't know about other churches, I've been to them, but I don't remember them saying these things. They have what's called the mother's board. And it's like elders, but they're all women, and they tend to be between 70 and however old. And I met with them last year. Nope, let me fix that. God, this has been a long year. I met with them in March. It seems like an awful long time ago, but I met with them in March. And one of the things that came out of this conversation, and these women were from 70 to 93, and they had plenty of things to say. And one of the women said, I asked them what are some of their concerns. And this woman at first felt a little reluctant to share. And she said, well, I don't know if I should share this, but I'm concerned that how my family is going to take care of me, if they're going to be willing to take care of me, because I was kind of mean to them. She said, and I didn't plan on telling anybody this, but I feel like I'm supposed to share this here. She said, I was mean to them, and I was a young mom. I didn't know what I was doing. And my concern is that when I get to the point that I'm going to need help, they're not going to want to help me. And the room got very quiet. And so as we continue to age, a lot of us are going to be thinking about, well, do I deserve the honor? Okay, God says you do. So we're going to believe God for it. However, he also has a lot of instruction and wisdom as it relates to how you should live your life. So if you don't take anything else away from this question, take away that the intent is to live your life in a way that you would honor you. Okay? So at the end of the day, we all have calls on our life, each and every one of us. Sometimes that call pivots, it turns into another call, that one pivots and turns into that one. And then let's face it, sometimes it comes right back to the first one because you didn't know what you were doing the first time, and then God sends you back so that you can get it straight. I think about Joshua and Caleb when they were sent ahead to go check out the land that Israel was about to take possession of. And they came back with their grapes, ginormous, declared that there were giants there. The other 10 were, yeah, but we were like grasshoppers, and they know that we know we're like grasshoppers. But Joshua and Caleb were like, no, we can do this. Come on, let's go. Caleb was 45 years old when that happened. And of course, as you know, it was 40 years later before he actually was able to take possession of his land. He was 85 years old, and he said, I feel like I was 40. I went in there and took those giants out to help you guys get your land, and I got mine. Now, we're all going to go, well, God didn't let the shoes wear out, and God gave them special strength, and that's all true. Number one, doesn't mean you can't get it too, because God is God. But number two, I'm thinking, maybe I'm wrong, Caleb was not sitting around for 40 years with his arms folded, waiting for his next call. What is one thing, and this is where you're not getting out of it, okay? Because we're gonna do a little work here. I know that there's one thing that God has probably put on your heart that you're supposed to do for the kingdom. What's that one thing? I want you to think about it for a couple of minutes. I'm going to actually give you probably a minute and a half. But I really do want you to think about it. And then I want you to write it down. So for those of you who are still thinking, that's great. You got a little bit more time. I want you to think about it. What's one thing that God has put on your heart that you know he has an assignment for you, for his kingdom? Now, I want you to take that one thing, and I want you to go into your phones. We all have them. And I want you to go into your calendar for October 25th, not 2026. I want you to go into your calendars right now for October 25th, 2025, to set up an appointment for yourself to make sure that if you haven't thought about it, you've begun the first step of that call from God. Okay? Now, there are a few keys to aging well. One of the things I know about this group is you're all very resourceful. You've also got a lot of resilience, because nobody can be a financial advisor and not have resilience. It's a tough job, especially just starting out. But there are a few keys to aging well. I'm going to talk about them. And the first one is your spiritual health. We come here to talk about how God is going to work in our lives. We come here knowing that we're going to get fed by one another with fellowship. Without your spiritual health, though, you're not going to be able to walk in a space of strength, of confidence, because you've got to be walking with God. You've got to be spending some time with God. You've got to be having conversation with God. You ought to be having conversations with each other about your conversations with God. That's the whole point. By creating that spiritual fellowship, by creating that spiritual space, you're going to be unstoppable because you're going to have the full armor on every day. Now we all know that we don't all get this right every day. If we get, a few of the items on, we're like, oh, I had a salvation. Maybe I can make it through the day with this. And that's all we'll do. It's like, well, I know I'm saved, so let me just get through the day with that. But we don't put our shield on. We don't put our belt of truth on. Get dressed in the morning. There's an admiral in the Navy that did a speech to some college graduates, and one of the things he said was, if you expect to be successful, make your bed. Because if you make your bed first thing in the morning, no matter how bad your day is, you're going to come back to your bed being made, which is going to make you feel like you got at least one thing done. So walking with God, getting up with God, maybe make your bed too. It was actually good advice. Getting up with God and spending some time with God is going to be one of the things that helps you to age well, because you're not going to be obsessing over worldly things that are not relevant. Stay with the Father, walk with the Father, be with the Father in order to get where you need to get. Now, mental health, with a healthy mindset, you're going to be able to age much more. You like to use the word gracefully. I don't know if gracefully is the right word, because aging is not for kids, right? It's not for little kids. This is some serious work. Take it from me. And as God has put me on this mission to be a global ambassador for aging well, he's also put me through various challenges to help me go, okay, well, you haven't dealt with this aging issue. Let's try that one. Okay, I'm going to mess with your memory for a while so you think you've got dementia, because I want you to think about how a person would feel if they had that particular threat. One of the biggest, best weapons, which tags back up into spiritual health, when it comes to your mental health, is not relying on yourself, but relying on God. Because when you rely on your own understanding, let's face it, it is limited. And so you're going to end up being in spaces where you can't actually address the issues because you don't have a toolkit to do it. And so one of the ways to avoid anxiety, well, anxiety is what? Worry. And worry is what? Not trusting God. Don't trust God because I didn't talk to him. We don't have that great of a relationship, right? So they all are going to come together. Now, the reality is mental health issues are very real. I am not one of those people that's going to say if you're having a mental health issue, it's because you're having a spiritual issue. Because I've seen some things, and I've seen some things, and I know that there's so many other aspects of it that can be there, but the key is going to be address it for what it is. If you're depressed, address it as depression. Don't pretend and say, well, I miss my dog. No, you're depressed. We were looking at your life. You're not sleeping. Maybe it is anxiety. Being in denial about the mental health issues is almost worse than having them, because now you're on a slippery slope to just keep getting worse and worse. So it's going to always be about addressing them as they come to pass. The next thing, of course, is going to be physical health. And for those that work out on the regular, you know that working out, you automatically, your mind is a little clearer. You feel a little bit better about life. I don't actually need coffee if I go ahead and do that swim in the morning. It makes a big difference. It affects your ability to have good mental health because you're keeping your body in tune. And the other thing is as we get older, who doesn't want to be able to answer God's call because they have the agility that they're supposed to, because they have the energy that they're supposed to, because they have the strength that they're supposed to. So making sure that you work on your physical health is going to guarantee a much better aging process. And then lastly is community engagement. I touched on that earlier about the gentleman that came together and realized that they had this one issue about sleeplessness. Here's the other thing about aging. I'm going to very deliberately make sure that in my circle of friends, I got every decade covered. We got the 10s, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s. Why? Because the truth of the matter is, as you get older, you might be the last one standing. And this is where issues of isolation can come in. because there's no longer community. We're not regularly fellowshipping. We're not regularly hanging out with people because our friend group's gone. Your friend group should be a perpetual thing. I don't care if you're 20 years old right now or you're 70 years old right now. Your friend group should continue to, and I'm not saying you should have 4 billion friends. This isn't like we're trying to get likes. It's about having quality people around you across generations. And that's going to actually impact even more. Why? Because if I've got a 40-year-old friend, I'm 67, and I can say, girl, let me tell you about that menopause thing before it starts. Because my mom didn't tell me. She just laughed when I asked her about it, which I thought was evil. But she thought it was funny. It's like, Mom, really though? I know, guys. Sorry, I was told not to talk about that one, but I couldn't help it. But really, being able to have people of various ages around you, it actually helps you to stay in touch with intergenerational communication, what's going on, what's important to them. But then you get the opportunity to show them what being you at your age can look like when you take it seriously, that it's an important thing to make important. Now, when it comes to aging well, I'm going to have a question in this. I'm going to start pointing to people. I think I'm going to start with the guy with the rig shirt. So get ready. Yeah. Um, I did give him a heads up, though. I was fair. I want you to think about it. Who do you know right now that's aging well? Just give it a couple of seconds. Who do you know that's aging well? And while you're thinking about that, I want you to be able to tell me what you admire about them. Okay? Now, I've had the opportunity to hang out with Wayne and Phyllis Knowles. And I had to add them to my list of aging well. And they're not that, they're like 4 seconds older than I am, but they're doing such a great job of it. Just having the enthusiasm about living life, about wanting to be available to live that life, to be in service. So, Mr. Rigshirt, what's your name? Dion? Okay. Who do you know? I think we're going to need the mics if we have it for him. Thank you so much. He is going to tell us who he thinks is aging well, and then you're going to tell us what is it you admire about their aging process.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. So all the people who I thought of first is my grandparents. Yeah. So my grandma and grandpa, they are 85 now. I tell everyone they live on a vakantie oord, like a holiday resort. They've lived there they decided to go there 1 year and they decided to just never go home again. So they started renting it out. And yeah, my grandpa, he runs the boats and everything at the resort, and he uses the money that he receives there to go to the Kruger Park every year for 2 months. So he's 85. He packs his caravan and he goes for 2 months. Yeah, he's still physically able to do it. He's mentally still there. He's running his little business. So that's the first person who I thought of.
Awesome. All right, who's going to volunteer, or I can point? It's up to you. All right, Laurel, you're next.
Okay, I had someone in mind. It's my mom. She's 84, and she is just what everyone would want to be when they're 84, to be honest. She walked my dad to the end recently with dementia. And in financial planning, I always talk about go, slow go, and no go. And they were both in the go stage of life for many years of retirement. And then my dad's dementia kicked in and they went immediately to no go. And my mom just settled in. She had that reality check. This might be the rest of her life. By the time he passed, she might not be able to. And she just settled into the long obedience. So I see my mom being someone who has the long obedience. My dad passed just as he was forgetting our names. And my mom is so go again at 84. And she is a blessing to everyone around her. She teaches a Bible study. She has a women's group. She runs a support group for people who are caregivers of people with dementia. She's gone on trips with all of us kids. she's expanding her generosity role, and she's just my hero.
So, can I get a volunteer at a table where you talked about community engagement? Anybody consider community engagement something that you should look to getting more involved with? Okay. Okay. Got some over here.
Yeah, three of us all has. Hi, so the three of us all had community engagement as a priority.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did you discuss on how you're going to go about making that happen? What's your plan of attack?
No. me and Brian not. I think you have a
I did say yes last week to a board of younger people.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. All right. Now let's talk about mental health. Did anyone discuss the value around that as far as realizing that either whether it's you or maybe assisting someone else in their aging process? Anyone discuss that one? Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think firstly, I've got a job if you don't have one, actually. No, I think for what I shared was, so as the family, we moved to Canada 8 years ago. And I think just the stress, and I saw that, how it impacted my capacity for problem solving. And so for me, in terms of that, it's a couple of things. One is obviously, taking the right vitamins, in terms of stimulating the brain nerves again. But also just go back maybe to my maths books of grade 12, and just go back or start learning musical instrument or something like that. But just to kind of, because I can really see that it impacts heavily if you live under stress for a long time.
Very, very, very true. Another fact is stress will actually cause you to have memory issues. You won't be able to remember things. And I had that scare, and God said, "Oh, no, it's not dementia. I was just kidding. I just wanted you to know what it felt like to be afraid." Okay, got it. I'm relying on you, God. So it worked out. And I promise you that there have been these spaces where he's put me to go, I want you to feel this, and I want you to feel that, and I want you to feel this. Now, what about taking care of your physical health? What conversations do we have out there about your physical health? Come on, don't be shy. Thank you.
I had shared that I had a spinal surgery almost 2 years ago and some other things. So I kind of just got off a habit of exercising regularly, and I can feel it in my mind and my body. And so we were at an orphan village before here. And I suspect that somehow orphans are in my future. But as I was playing with them, I was like, man, if I was regularly working out, I was having a blast with them, but I could have even more blast not worrying about what the next day would feel like. So,
Yeah.
but game plan, I already know how to work out. I know what I need to do. I just need to do it.
Struggle is real. The struggle is real, girlfriend. I do understand. And the last one, spiritual health. What is some of the journey you're thinking about you need to change up with regard to your spiritual health? Anyone? We have one over here.
So we didn't really speak about this in the group, but my wife and I had just sort of been challenged the last 2-3 years with our parents who've been aging. And I was away for business once, and I was doing a quiet time and came up with Psalm 90 verse 14. So I've actually got it on the screensaver on my phone. And I think it just ties in with the spiritual health aspect. It says, "Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days." So I think that kind of summarizes it for me.
All right. Thank you. Great job, everyone. I'm so proud of you. All right. So the truth of the matter is we talk a lot about legacy. What are we going to leave behind? Well, the legacy begins at home. Let me ask a question to the group. Anyone here that doesn't have kids yet, but you think you want to? Okay. All right. Now, you get the kids. They're here. You love them. They're great. They're the cutest ones in the world and the smartest ones in the world because they're yours. Let me ask you, those that don't have any kids yet, do you think if something happened drastic that you would be willing to sacrifice your life for them? I see a lot of nodding heads. I heard a few quiet yeses. Of course. I have children, I have grandchildren, and if it was about their life or mine, I'm pretty confident. Well, it was nice knowing you. I got to go. It's going to be me, right? But then the question came up in the room, are you willing to live for your children? That's a different commitment. That's a long-term commitment. And what that commitment means is, are you willing to do what it takes to help your child through life? But also, are you going to be willing to do what it takes by mirroring the image of aging well, by doing it through life, our kid people, now? Because when they're watching you be a parent, Ron Blue says, you won't know how good a parent you were until your kids become parents. So you've got to mirror those images for your kids when you have them. For those that already do, not too late. You can start right now. And you want to make sure that they understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. Ron Blue also says there's more caught than taught. Does everybody know what that means? Okay, so I'm not sure if you do. So more caught than taught means that you're more likely to catch on to something by watching or someone actually showing you than someone telling you something. So the best way for your kid to figure out how to live well at 50 is for them to watch you do it. The best way, again, for them to learn how to be a great parent is to watch you do it. And so I'm first one, guilty as the day is long. I don't always make the best choices. I was struggling with those snacks out there. I was struggling with the snack box that somebody gave me. The devil is a lie. I was struggling with that box too, because living requires us to what? Die daily. And in order to live for your children, that means that the decisions that you make are going to be about them and for them. Now, what we need to do as global ambassadors of God's kingdom is we need to develop a plan as it relates to aging. Because imagine if that $87 billion was spent on aging well instead of anti-aging. How might that change things? It would change things a lot. Ageism is a very real thing. Older people are oftentimes ignored. They're talked over when you go to the doctor with them. They're talked over when they go out places. They're not respected. They live a lot of time in frustration because they don't have the advocacy. And part of not having the advocacy is just not being able to live out their life in a way that is going to help them to live well. So anti-ageism could actually be nearly, I won't say completely wiped out, but imagine if all of us aged well. The impact, we're not going to think that aging is abnormal. We're not going to think that aging is a shameful thing. It's just going to be a normal thing in every culture. And we're not going to look down on those that we should actually revere, right? And this is how we can make global impact with the issues of ageism. And we can continue by realizing that lifetime service, live for your kid, it is for a lifetime. That you take time out to think about what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, because, the Bible talks about the hearers and the seers, of our faith, and they're watching everything else too. And so be that example that they can be. You want to spend and have a lifetime full of the ability to live well. I think about Caleb not just at 85 saying, let's go, let's do this. And honestly, that's the way we should be approaching life. Each and every year should be an opportunity to do more. And as I talk to individuals that are aging well, that's exactly what's happening. They find themselves, once they've opened themselves up to being utilized by God, no matter what age, they have more job than they ever planned on. Okay, so we've got to think like people and teach like people that anticipate being in service all the time. As financial advisors, there's lots of conversation about long-term care, making sure that we've got the insurance. But you know what? I discovered something recently. I don't know about here, but in the U.S., we have primary school or elementary school up to, 10 years old. Then you have middle school up to about 13. And then you go to high school until you're 17, 18, and then you're off to college, however long that takes. But the thing about it is, I realized that most people, once they graduated school, they stopped climbing stairs altogether because they didn't have to anymore. They didn't have to go back and forth to class. They didn't have to go back and forth to go outside for recess and then back to class again. They just stopped climbing stairs. So when we're looking at older people who can't climb stairs, if you were to run the clock back for most of them, it isn't because there's something inherently wrong with them. They just don't have any muscle memory of climbing stairs anymore. It's not it's just that. Now imagine if everyone climbed 3 times a week, just one flight of stairs. How is that going to change things? How is that going to change mobility? How is that going to affect the cost that government spend, we spend on long-term care? Well, I'm going to tell you what my theory is. My theory is if everyone from elementary school on up, come on, let's walk with Caddy Graham up these stairs. Oh, escalators too. You just get there faster. But climbing those stairs creates an opportunity for you've got stronger legs, you've got a stronger core, which means you have better balance. If you've got a stronger core, you've got better legs and you've got better balance. The issues of being stuck by yourself and having immobility drop dramatically. Imagine every single older person that you know right now could beat you walking around the block. How's that going to change things? Dramatically. So by being an example, and I have and trust me, God put me on blast on that one too, because now anytime I find some stairs at least 3 times a week, I have to, if I'm gonna talk the talk, I have to walk the walk, right? And I actually do climb the stairs, and I have found that I do feel stronger. And the other thing, the other secret gift is confidence. And confidence allows any age person to go out, seek God's calling, and go for it. And if whether you're a believer or not, when you've got confidence, you're going to go out, you're going to do things, you're not going to be stuck. Which takes me to my last one, which is isolation. Isolation is killer no matter what age you are. But when you're older, the sense of not being able to get around, you don't feel well, your friends are dying off on you, your family is annoyed with you because, let's face it, you're mean to them and, they don't like you. So they don't come around. Because sometimes, and this is another thing to consider, when you're dealing with older people, sometimes they're cranky because they're in chronic pain. It isn't even about you. They're just suffering. Now, mind you, some of them, are cranky. But I'm hoping I won't be one of them. But it's also about, again, creating that community. Because when we have the community, we're more likely to want to live. And when you want to live, you want to move. And you want to spend time with other people. I think about the calling of many of the folks that are in the Bible. Think people like Moses and Caleb and Joshua and Elizabeth and Sarah and Abraham. And they were called to do things at a much older age. And they also had in common that they were willing to step out there and do what God wanted them to do. Okay, let me rethink that, because Moses, he pushed back a bit. God, you know, I can't talk well. He did do that. He did try to back out a couple of times in Egypt too. So we're going to take Moses off, even though he did get a calling at an older age, 80 years old, where he was called to go out and free a million people. You don't know when God's going to call you. So one of the things that I say to people, at the end of the day, you don't have to get ready if you've already gotten ready. Just be ready all the time. You don't have to get ready, just be ready. Be ready for the call. Be ready and the call can be anything from that 2:00 in the morning call from your neighbor's nephew who's visiting, and that's the only number that he has. Who knows? It could be anything. But taking the opportunity to live a life such that you can live in a way to where you're ready all the time. And because you're ready, and, you know, I appreciate her speaking about, I wish I'd been in better shape because then I could have engaged those kids even more. And we've all got those things where we look back, where we regretted not having enough of whatever time, fitness, you know, wind to be able to do the things that God is bringing us to do. So as a believer, we really are called to make sure that we're always ready. And aging well is going to be one of those things. Now, I could have came here and told you to eat this many carbs and eat this much protein. I could have came here and told you how often you're supposed to exercise. But honestly, I think that given the wisdom in this room, you can all figure out how to work on those things. And that's not something I felt like was going to be the best use of your time. My thing, God handed to me because my thing was something altogether different. And he said, oh no, you're going to talk about this. And so he sent me here to talk to you about being an amazing, miraculous child of God and having the opportunity to be a mirror your life for other people, from your spiritual to your physical self, and live a life such that you don't have regret. Because instead of having to get ready, you're already ready and you can be ready.